So, hold on. Okay, let's get started. Welcome. So we're going to talk about the PSAT NMSQT for the 2024 school year. And so we're just going to go over big test day information. So what to expect, when to come to our testing site, where is our testing site? Really quickly, just to explain what the PSAT 10 is and the PSAT NMSQT, they're actually the same test. The biggest difference is that when you're in 11th grade, you will take the PSAT NMSQT, and that score can help you qualify for the National Merit Scholarship. So that's the only difference between the two. The exams are exactly the same. You can take the same exam in 10th grade and in 11th grade. In 10th grade, it's more of a practice test. And in 11th grade, your score actually gets sent to the National Merit Scholarship Foundation, and they look for qualifying scores, and they'll reach back out to you to let you know if your score qualified. And then they'll have some additional requirements. If you do qualify and you become a semifinalist, you do have some additional requirements like taking the SATs, for example, and doing well on that exam. And then you can move on in the next step of that scholarship. So that's the biggest difference. All right, so test day information. So please plan to arrive on time. Parents, you are welcome to sit nearby. There are coffee shops and shopping centers. So there's a Sam's Club, I think, so you can also get some shopping in if you need to. But our test day is on Wednesday, October 23rd at the Citrus Heights Community Center. Students will not be permitted to access their phones again until the exam is over. So just keep that in mind. For emergencies, you will just make sure that the proctors have your contact information in our database. So if there is an issue, we will absolutely contact you, but we don't foresee anything happening. So, but just know that you can reach the proctors, and we will be able to reach you if there is. But your students will have access to the phones after the exam is over. Some timelines. Okay, so we have students who have been approved for extended time. So if you are a student with a extended time accommodation, please arrive at 7:40 a.m. at the test location. I know this is a bit early. It's only to make sure that everyone finishes around the same time so that you will have that extra time. For students with the 50% finish time, or not 50%, sorry, the extra time and a half, that means you'll finish around 11:30. For students with 100% extra time, that means you have double time, you'll finish around 12:30. For all other students who have regular testing times, you will arrive at 9 a.m. We'll start promptly at 9:15, so please do not be late. And then we'll try to finish the PSATs around 12 o'clock. And then I'm going to share my phone number. Please don't abuse that number. This is my my working cell phone number. If you want to receive a notification on test day, parents and guardians, please go ahead and text that number. You can write your name, your student's name, and and I'll have your number, the best number to text you back at. And so I'll give you a 15-minute warning of, okay, we're about to finish our exam. So I will give everyone a text if you just let me know, or if you have questions, feel free to text me on test day. If you have a quick question of how much time is left, I can give you a good estimate. The exam for regular test time takers is about 2 hours and 14 minutes. Extended time for time and a half, that means you get 50% extra time, is about 3 hours and 21 minutes. And then for double time, it is 4 hours and 28 minutes. So just those are the estimates. But again, there is some time needed for instructions, for check-ins. So we might go a little bit longer or finish a little bit earlier, but that is our estimated time for everyone. Just make sure to write my number down if you have questions. If you want to know if your students are going to finish up soon, you can always text me, or if you want a notification, just let me know in advance and I'll make sure. Okay. So remember, these are estimated times, so just drop my number down if you need a little warning, like 15 minutes. I'll probably text everyone beforehand, before the students actually finish up. And our students will be providing testing laptops to all students. So you do not have to bring your personal laptop to the testing center at all. We'll have everything loaded and configured for the test day. All right, so this is kind of just a map of our of Citrus Heights of our testing center. So we will actually be we reserve the large community hall, and we'll be splitting that room, and then we have some little rooms off to the side as well. So that's just to kind of give you an idea of where we will be. We'll try to set up a check-in table at the very front so parents can look out for a table with our counselors and me as well. So if you want to see familiar faces, go ahead and look at my face, Jennifer, Wendy, and Mary, and Rachel. They're all on this presentation. And then those are going to be the counselors that will be showing up for PSAT proctoring as well. All right. So what to bring on test day? You will need a pencil or a pen. We will provide scratch paper for you, but you just need to have a writing utensil. Just make sure you're able to use that scratch paper and do your scratch work on there. You do need a valid photo ID. So if you do not have a photo ID, you can have your driver's license, a California ID, or a school ID. If you do not have your school ID or any sort of identification, please go ahead and visit our Bridge website and request a ID ASAP, like right now, today, so that we can get you an ID card by test day. We will be checking everyone's photo name that matches our registration ticket as well. And you are able to also bring a calculator. Keep in mind the test is all digital, so you actually have a calculator embedded in the test now. So you don't have to bring a calculator, but if you aren't used to using a calculator on your computer, then I would recommend bringing a separate one and just make sure it is a approved device. And an external mouse, if you like. I know for me, I really enjoy an external mouse, but that is up to you if you would like to bring that. And then when I send out the slides, you will be able to click on all the links. So there is a much longer list of what to bring, what they recommend, and things that are nice to have. You don't really have to follow this list. It is a lot of recommendations, but I pretty much distilled out the bare minimum. You need all of these. The last two are just if you like. And then if you want to bring a calculator, you can click on that link and you will also be taken to the exact calculator list. What is approved by brand, by serial number. We will have this chart out and we'll make sure that the calculator you bring is approved, but just let's not save yourself the hassle and just make sure if you're going to bring one, it is on the approved list. Nice to have. Drinks and snacks will only be for break time, but it is a pretty long test for some people, so it's nice to have a little snack. A fully charged device will be provided for you with a power cord and scratch paper. So you do not need to bring a laptop. You do not need to bring a scratch paper. We will have that all ready for you. All right, permitted items. So on your desk, you are allowed to have your testing device. We are going to provide a sign-in ticket. You are able to have that on your desk. The approved calculator, if you are bringing one, a external mouse pad and mouse, if you want to bring one, the scratch paper that we provide. So if you bring any paper, even if it's blank, sorry, these are the College Board's rules, not mine. We are not going to let you use your blank piece of paper. We will have to provide our own paper for you. And then you can have your pencil and pen on your desk. Permitted during testing. So this has to be stored away. Not on your desk during the exam. You can have your charging cord, which we'll have a power bank if there's a need for that, but we'll have that provided for you. Snacks and drinks will have to be off your desk, but you can have them stored underneath the desk or in your backpack. Hand sanitizer, cleaning supplies are also allowed, but again, that is not on the desk, that is under the desk or in a backpack. All right. Oops, I forgot I animated these. I have a question in the chat. If we ordered a student ID, but it does not arrive in time, Sarah, I would reach out to your counselor and your homeschool teacher. Just let them know, let's have a backup plan. So if you submit your picture to your homeschool teacher and your counselor, we can add your picture to your transcript. And when you bring that to the test day, we'll have an itty bitty little picture on the transcript, but that will be, that can kind of serve as verification that you are our students and we can check that it is the student taking the test. Okay. All right, prohibited items. So you cannot have a mobile phone, your smartwatch, or electronic device other than the testing device. So we will have a bin to collect all cell phones. We will give them back. We'll have a little sticky note where you can label that your phone is yours, and then we'll provide that all back for you. I do not recommend hiding your phone, because if we catch you using a phone during a break, your score will be invalidated, and we will report that incident to the College Board. So if you are bringing a phone, make sure you turn it in at the beginning of the exam. We will return it right after it is over so that you can call your parents or guardian. And your watch can be a normal analog watch, but it cannot be a smartwatch, obviously, because everything's connected to your phone now. Watches that make noise, please make sure they do not make noise, as that is disruptive to other students. Don't bring an external keyboard. That is not allowed either. You cannot bring a second monitor or a stylus or a second battery. Everything, computer and power cord, will be provided for you. You cannot have a privacy screen, so like something to cover your screen. You cannot have that either. The proctors have to see your screen. So you can't bring that. Obviously, you can't bring notes, books, or any references of any kind. You cannot bring scratch paper. We will provide your scratch paper. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but I'll probably say it again later on in this presentation. And no notes for login password information. Again, we will provide that information for you. No headphones, earbuds, or earplugs. No camera or recording device. You cannot have a separate timer. The timer is actually embedded in your Blue Book app. So everything, you'll have access to a clock and you'll have access to a timer, so you don't need to bring a separate one. You cannot bring another testing device. We will have backups for you. And obviously no weapons or firearms. All right, College Board accommodations. So if you are a student who has a IEP or 504 and you have accommodations regularly embedded in your class or your assignments, you will also be able to have them for a College Board exam. If you are on this webinar or this workshop, that means you have already submitted your accommodations request and they have been approved. But in the future, if you do need any other accommodations or an adjustment of your current accommodations, you can submit them yourselves or work with me directly. Accommodations do take up to 7 weeks to approve, so just keep that in mind. So if you plan to take a SAT or a PSAT, you want to plan ahead of time. And that's why I think some of you, I reached out ahead of time to make sure all those accommodation requests were in. And once you get approval, you will have a number that stays with you no matter where you go, and it will stick with you for all the College Board exams. So families can request on their own, or they can submit a consent form to me, the SSD coordinator. I just realized I forgot to introduce myself at the very beginning of this presentation. My name is Linda Chen. I'm the director of high school. I will be at the PSAT administration. You'll see me. And so I'm also the SSD coordinator this year. So if you do have accommodations questions, you can also email them to me. And once you have been approved for accommodations, some of our students have been, you can actually visit the College Board's accommodation page and see all the different ways accommodations are available for students. And then also a little bit more about submitting requests, managing accommodations, things like that. You can also go visit the website and see what kind of accommodations are allowed. I'll go over a few very briefly with this group, just so that you know, if you have this accommodation approved, what that will look like on the actual exam. So extended time, we talked a little bit about that. Extended time means students are approved to sit for a longer period for this exam. The one thing about accommodations is if you have them approved, you have to either reject all of them before the test day, or if you accept them and you want to use all of the accommodations, you will have to actually sit for that time allotted. So for example, if they give you 4 hours and 28 minutes, even if you're really fast and you work through all your sections, unfortunately, you do have to sit for that full double time. So you will have to sit for the full 4 hours and 28 minutes, and you cannot skip ahead. So that's something to keep in mind. We do have students who have regular time, which is 2 hours and 14 minutes, a time and a half, which is 3 hours and 21 minutes, and double time, which is 4 hours and 28 minutes. So just keep that in mind. Breaks all students will receive a 10-minute break between the reading and math section. That's given to every student. Some students have extra breaks, so they will have an extra 5-minute break in between all of the sections. And then extended breaks means your 10-minute break will be longer. It'll be a 20-minute break instead. And then breaks as needed is for students who they will see a little pause button in their app and they can pause the exam whenever they would like and actually restart that. Of course, breaks as needed is within reason. So it's not every single 5 minutes you're taking a break. It is within reason and as needed. Modified seating. So some students have small group testing so that they'll be located in a smaller room for testing. Preferential seating. So you might be able to sit closer to the front or closer to the proctor or closer to a door, depending on your needs. And some other accommodations that you might see are you are able to have a computer for essays. Luckily for the PSATs, there are no essays, so you won't need to type out an essay for this exam, but you will be issued a computer. Everything is digital for the PSAT. And some students will have a printed copy of the verbal instructions, which is kind of nice. It's already embedded in the Blue Book app, so it will actually pull up a dialogue of what the proctors will read, and every student has access to that. Four-function calculator is also embedded in the PSATs. I'll show you what that calculator looks like so you can get familiar with it. And then food, drink, and medication is also allowed. However, if you have a student who needs medication or a snack or a drink during the exam, you have to have that accommodation approved first before your student is able to take that medication. So that, just keep that in mind for the future. If you need that accommodation, we do have to submit that to the College Board for approval in advance. All right. I know I talk fast, so feel free to type in the chat and slow me down if you need clarification on any of these. So we're going to actually go over the structure of the exam now. So the structure of the exam is it's completely digital this year. Last year it was also completely digital. It takes 2 hours and 14 minutes, which is kind of nice. It is a shorter exam than before. It used to take 3 hours. Now it's 2 hours and 14 minutes for the regular time. And there are two large sections. There is a reading and a reading comprehension section and a math section. And each of those sections will have a multi-stage like adaptive testing. So the first part of the reading, you will have a module 1. So you'll get easy, medium, and hard questions depending how you do on that first section. The next section will either be easier or harder, depending on how you do, because they'll give you a mixture of questions based on your performance in module 1. So if you scored really well with all of the questions, you probably will start seeing harder and harder questions. If you didn't do so well with the hard questions, you might see a mixture of like medium questions for module 2. So that's how the digital exams kind of adapt to your ability. They kind of figure out where your range is and then give you questions tailored around that range. The scores are range from 320 to 1520, which is very similar to the SATs. It's a little bit different from the scoring, but it's pretty similar. Usually whatever you score on the PSAT is a pretty good predictor of what you will receive on the SAT, which is why it's called the practice SATs. All right. So the PSATs is broken up into a reading and writing section. There's a module 1 and a module 2, and each section will be broken up into 27 questions and 32 minutes each section. And so for students with extra breaks, you'll see a little 5-minute break in between the two writing sections, but that's only for students who have that extra break. Almost all students will have that 10-minute break in between, but depending on your accommodation, you might have extra time or extra breaks. For the math section, you'll see 4 multiple choice questions, and you'll also see 3 response questions where you'll actually type in the answers that you come up with. And for the math section, it is 22 questions each and 35 minutes for each section. So that kind of gives you an idea of what to expect on the exam. You will see a range of topics. So for the reading and writing section, it's not just English. It will be literature based on history and social studies, humanities, science topics, so a variety of topics. So the best way to prepare sometimes is to read a bunch of different articles on different topics, just so you can prepare. and practice your reading comprehension. And then for math, it will be about 75% of the questions will be multiple choice, and about 25% of them will be questions you calculate yourself and kind of write in your answers, or type in your answers, I should say. All right. So going digital means everything is all on an app. And so you can actually download the Blue Book early on and take a look at what that Blue Book device will look like. So you can actually explore that device. I will say you can also, I recommend it if you also have accommodations approved, because when you download that Blue Book, you can also see what accommodations will look like on test day as well. So I wanted to point out some features of the Blue Book app. So here you'll see a sample reading and writing question. You'll see a passage, and you'll see a question, a multiple choice question on the side. So this is pretty typical of what you'll see, but notice, I just realized the numbers are very small. But if you look carefully, number one, you will see a testing timer that counts down for you. So it will count down the remaining time. If that makes you nervous, that's okay. You can actually, you can hide that testing timer. So if you don't like a countdown, you can hide those numbers. It will still give you a warning when there's 5 minutes left in your module, but depending on the kind of test taker you are, if you like to see the time, if that makes you nervous, you can view the time or you can hide it. 3, you can also expand the directions. So the directions are available, but they'll be minimized in each section. And then 4, you will also be able to see the battery life on your computer as well. 5, you have the annotation device, which is pretty cool. That means you can write little notes, you can highlight things in your passage. So as you're taking the exam, if you're noting some keywords or phrases, you can actually highlight part of the question and leave a little note for yourself, which is really nice to go back to later on. And 6, you can also mark the question for review. So that little flag, I'm sorry, not 6, 7, I think. 7, you can mark the question for review, which means when you go back, you can actually see which questions you wanted to review. So if there's a harder one that's taking too much time, you can skip ahead, mark it, and then at the end, you can actually pull up a whole thing for you to see exactly which questions you needed to go back to. And then there's a options eliminator. So number 6, I believe, you can actually mark off some answers. Obviously, it's not going to automatically take out questions that are incorrect for you, but if you identify them yourself, you can actually cross them off and narrow down your choices in a visual way, if that helps you. 8, you can also extend that text box. So if you click on that little 8 number, you can actually expand the reading or expand the questions, whichever you prefer. This is just like a perfect 50-50 split of the question and reading passage, but you can expand either section. And number 9, at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see question 6 out of 27. You can actually select that and see all your questions. And anything you bookmark, you'll be able to see exactly which ones you bookmark. You can skip around in the question menu as well. And that's kind of a breakdown of what that will look like. Math is very similar. You'll see that the layout is exactly the same. You have the timer, you can hide that timer. But the key thing to note is, 1, that little calculator button at the very top. You will be able to pull up a built-in graphing calculator in your Blue Book app and use that. Obviously, if you want to bring your approved calculator, you can have that on the side, rather have the calculator take up screen space. There is also a reference sheet in the math section. So very simple formulas that you might need for the exam. You don't have to memorize, but they will be provided for you. So like the area of a circle, for example, might be on that reference sheet. So you don't have to memorize that formula. You just need to know how to use it. And it does take time sometimes for you to get used to a digital interface. So I do recommend downloading that Blue Book app and trying it out yourself just to see what that will look like, and just so that you're familiar before test day. All right, so if you're not too exhausted yet, we're going to go over each section now. We're going to look at reading and writing features. So for the PSATs, you're going to see short passages and there will be cross-disciplinary context. So the passages will be related to literature, history, social studies, science, humanities, a variety of different topics. You don't have to know all the, science terminology, but just know that you might see some very scientific names, and it shouldn't impact um, the passage, but rather you should be able to use the context clues to kind of figure out what the passage overall means. You will also see informational graphics like tables, bar graphs, and line graphs. So make sure you're able to read a graph. Reading doesn't mean just reading text, it also means being able to read a graph. So just keep that in mind. And there will be focus features. So you'll focus on words and context, command of evidence, expression of ideas, and standard English conventions. So grammar, spelling, things like that. And this is just kind of a breakdown of what all of those groups means. So I won't read every single one for you, but it does give you a breakdown. It's pretty spread even across all the questions, but you'll see a little bit of craft and structure. So you'll have like questions that ask you words and context. So what the definition of a word is based on the passage. You'll also have like questions regarding information and ideas. So after reading a passage, what was that central idea, and pulling evidence from that reading to kind of back up your central idea. Standard English conventions. So you can also basically like form, structure, spelling, grammar things. You'll have questions. About 26% of the questions will be related to grammar. Expression of ideas as well. So kind of like how do you express those ideas effectively will be on that exam. All right. So we also have some practice questions for you. If you want, I can start a little timer, give you maybe about 2-3 minutes to read over that passage and take your best guess of the answer. And then we'll go over the correct answer. So I'm just going to pause my mouth right now and then go ahead and read and think of your answer. All right. If you're not done with the passage, don't worry. I'm also a slow reader, but in the interest of time, I'm going to move on and kind of uh, give you a sense of what the right answer is. So this one is actually the question is actually going to ask about information and ideas in the text. And so the skill that the student is trying to demonstrate is a command of evidence. So finding the evidence within the text. So in this case, the correct answer is, we want to do a little mini drum roll. The answer is D. So D is the best answer because the passage states that Jimsa and colleagues' hypothesis was that the sail-like structure of the S. Egypti, science terms, the S. Egyptiacus, who's good at dinosaur names, not me. Okay. Enhance the dinosaur's ability to travel underwater to hunt down prey species capable of making quick and evasive movements. So this choice is the best. So because it kind of, this choice's finding would effectively support that the hypothesis, because it would indicate that the sail-like structure would enable that dinosaur to move underwater effectively and quickly. So that is why answer D is correct. And we're going to go on to the next question. And I'll give you a few more minutes to read that question. All right, so let's go over the answer. So this question, the domain is information and ideas. So after reading the passage, we're trying to have the student demonstrate their skills in inference. So after reading this passage, what can you infer from what you just read? So in this case, B is the correct answer. The passage indicates that although scientists recognize that sleep, which is a widespread among animal species, has benefits, some scientists believe that deep, prolonged sleep is still risky from the perspective of an animal species survival and well-being. So there are still some undiscovered advantages to sleep, and so that answer B is the best one. Right. I'm going to jump ahead. There are a few more questions. So when I send out the slides, you'll be able to view some sample questions, and I'll also give you a link to some test questions and practice tools as well. All right, so we're going to skip ahead to math features. So calculators are actually allowed throughout the entire test. Way back in the day when I took the PSAT, so a while ago, you can only have calculators for one half of the test and then no calculators for the other half. And now they've just said, you know what, everyone has a smart device. You can have calculators for everything, which is kind of nice. You will focus on the application and conceptual understanding, procedural skills, fluency, and real world context. Again, you'll notice that reading and math focus on real world context. So they do want to draw in things that you would naturally read in your future careers and in college. And they will also want to give you problems based on real context as well. So you'll see multiple choice questions. You'll also see student produced response questions, which means you will have a question. You'll have to calculate the right number and then just write in that number or type in that right answer. So you'll focus on problem solving, data analysis, algebra, advanced mathematics, geometry, and trigonometry. So you will be tested on all of these types of topics. I believe the PSATs goes up to about Algebra 2 kind of topics. So it won't be anything beyond that. It's mostly Algebra 1, geometry, a little bit of trigonometry, maybe Algebra 2, but not too much into Algebra 2. Okay. All right, let's jump into a math question. Actually, not yet. Hold on. First, you need to know that there is a integrated calculator embedded in the Blue Book app. You can actually use the Desmos calculator. So you can try out the calculator version yourself just to kind of figure out, do you want to bring your own calculator or are you already familiar with this? So you can write an expression, a table, but this is the College Board specific, the PSAT NMSQT and SAT version of the calculator. So just get used to typing here. So you see there's a keyboard. You can do a squared, b squared, x, y. You can also have a four function calculator right here. So it does take a little getting used to. It's different from the interface of your phone calculator and a regular, like a TI calculator. So get used to using this. If it's too hard to use, I would recommend bringing your own calculator or practice with this, because I know a lot of math teachers prefer using Desmos now. But you can try out that calculator. That is exactly how it will look like on test day. So just get familiar with it. Make sure you're comfortable using it. If you're not, I recommend bringing your own approved calculator, right? All right, so let's break down that math section. You will see algebra questions. That's the big chunk of the test will be algebra and advanced math topics. So you'll cover questions that you'll see questions that cover linear equations in one variable and two variables, linear inequalities. You'll see equivalent expressions, nonlinear functions, and nonlinear equations in one variable system with two variables as well. And then you'll see about 15% of problem solving and data analysis. So you'll see ratios, proportions. This is where you'll see probably graphs and data charts from real science experiments. So you'll notice that. And then you'll also have geometry questions. About 15% of the questions will be area, volume, lines and triangles, circles, and trigonometry. Okay, so let's dive into a math question. Go ahead, if you have paper near you, go ahead and try to write that out, or try to solve it in your head if possible, but go ahead and take a few minutes to try to solve for f of x. All right, so in this question, we're looking at algebra. And oh, I already highlighted the answer, sorry. So it is, so we're testing linear functions, and we're testing a student's ability to evaluate a linear function. So in this question, the question is pretty much saying, if you have these two functions, f of x equals x plus 7 and g of x equals 7x, what is the value if you plug in these numbers? So 4 times f of 2, so in that case, x is 2, minus g of 2. So we're plugging in 2 for x, and then we're trying to solve everything. And the best answer is C in this case, because if you plug everything in, I think I typed it out for you. If you type everything in, you can plug in 2 to f of x and solve that. So it's 2 plus 7 equals 9. And then when you plug in 2 into the g of x equation, it's 7 times 2, which is 14. And then if you put it all together, 4 times 9 minus 14, you should be able to get 22. So this is a basic algebra question, and that's about, I believe, about 35% of the test will be algebra-based questions like that. Probably varying degrees of difficulty. Okay, let's do another math question. So this is a, let's see. So this is a similar question, but you'll see we're dealing with a quadratic function instead. now. So what you'll be asked to do is instead of finding the value of g of x, you're actually going to find the minimum value of this function. So we're expecting students to know quadratic equations and what that graph could potentially look like. So go ahead and take a few minutes and figure out what the best answer is. All right. So this question, we're now in advanced mathematics because we're dealing with a quadratic equation instead of a linear one. And so the skill that we're asking students to demonstrate is an understanding of nonlinear functions. And so students will need to be able to determine the key features of a function. So in this scenario, to find the best answer, the answer is actually going to be C. There's a few ways to find the answer. So you can either know how to write a equation in standard form. So for students, you would take that g of x equals x squared plus 5 and turn it into a standard form. So you're supposed to know what standard form is. And when you rewrite it in standard form, you'll notice that g of x, so as we rewrite it in standard form, it will look like equals 1 parentheses x minus 0 squared plus 55. And what you're supposed to know in standard form is when you have that in a quadratic function, the minimum value will be that k value, which is 55 in this case. It's okay if you don't remember standard form. I promise you, I don't use standard form in my day-to-day life, and I've taught math, so that is not a form that I have memorized. But what you can do, what I love about math, is that you can find you can find the same solution with a different way. So you do have the ability to graph this equation instead, and think about what minimum means. Minimum means the lowest point, or like in math terms, it means the lowest point on a graph. So if you graph it, you can find, okay, I can see the lowest point on my graph pretty easily. It looks like 55. So when you graph it, it's far easier than memorizing that standard form. So for math, that's a really good skill to have. Is usually there's different ways to solve one question. So if you can do one faster, or if you have the form memorized, great. That's really good for you. But if you don't, try to think of a different way instead of getting stuck. Try to think of a different way that you could find that minimum value. All right. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead to extra resources for all of you. So this is pretty much the end of our slide, but I did want to point out some resources. The College Board, because it's their test, they have a great resource page. It tells you all about the PSATs, why you want to take it. It gives you a little intro video as well. It can help you, it shows you where to download that Bluebook app to test it out. And then you can also start practicing on that website. And it kind of describes all the scholarships tied to this test when you take it in the 11th grade. So that is the main College Board page. There is also a student guide. And like the College Board, they really like to make their readings dense. This is 52 pages. So I don't know if you want to explore all of this, but you will see it's pretty much what we went over. I kind of took a lot of this information and broke it down for you, but you'll see all the guides that they have. It really tells you about their scholarship program. It tells you about the national merit steps. It also tells you about all of the guidelines for the testing rules as well. But don't worry about this. This is just, if you're curious, if you like to read all the rules, go ahead. It is a very large guide, but just know that all of the proctors, and I have read the proctor rules, so we'll be enforcing all the rules, and we've kind of described the important ones here today. You also have a big one is practice exams. So you can actually download a full like SAT practice test. I know it says SAT and we're practicing for the PSATs, but the SATs are pretty much just a little bit slightly harder version than the PSATs. So you can find full paper length tests and also full like digital exams. I recommend taking the digital exam because that's what you will have on test day. So, but if you just want exposure to questions, the paper one is also a great way to expose yourself to the types of questions that will be on this exam. Some sample questions. So the questions that I went over today, I cheated a little bit and I pulled directly from a College Board resource. So these are sample questions with answer explanations. So it kind of gives you a deep dive into why questions are correct and why answers are correct and why some answers are the wrong choice. So this is a pretty comprehensive guide if you want to take some practice questions, but you also want to know the explanation behind why a answer is better than the other. Those are some resources that you can check out before your exam. Khan Academy also has full-length practice exams, and they have a SAT prep course as well. Thank you, Brenda, for popping that into the chat. Study.com also has, it's one of our free all access free resources that we provide our students. So they also have PSAT practice materials as well. Thank you so much for that. That's great. And then there's also a quick list of what to bring and what to leave at home. So just some examples of what you can and cannot bring on PSAT day. So I will send these slides out and this recording to everyone. So you'll have all the links, and I will probably send them out later today. Just feel free to email me if you have any questions, email your counselors, or if you want, I will stick around. I'm going to stop recording